Good evening. Welcome to Pain to Power. I am Maria, your host, also known as Brown Girl Interrupting, and I'm so glad to have you all here with me today on the show Pain to Power, brought to you in association with the iRant Network with my executive producer, me, and my producer, Logic, Mr. M. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I am so excited to continue our journey together of healing and community and learning how to transmute and change our pain into power. And before I introduce my amazing guest, which I'm super excited about today, I want to share with you, I've been reading this book, or rereading, let's be honest, this book called Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And there's this line that I've been thinking about that she says, which is, there is a life meant for you that is truer than the one you're living. But in order to have it, you will have to forge it yourself. You will have to create on the outside what you are imagining on the inside. Only you can bring it forth, and it will cost you everything. And for me, this particular line has been swirling in my head because I've been thinking about this idea of sacrifice when it comes to pain to power, and how much we sometimes have to sacrifice when we are learning how to heal ourselves. And sometimes that sacrifice is ourselves, our own understanding of things, our own unlearning of things that we have been socialized into believing in. And sometimes that sacrifice is individuals in our lives that we think are the ones for us, but maybe are not keeping us where we need to be. So as we continue in this journey, I hope that you are reflecting on those things that may need to be sacrificed as you continue to find your healing in your pain and transmute your power. And thank you so much for all the people joining us. You see Angel Harris, welcome, thank you. And I see no holdbacks, my girl Tasha, another one of our iRant Network producers and creators. Hey, how's it going? And today I'm super excited to bring to you my featured guest, whom I met just recently at 202 Creates in DC, but she is, at the time, she was a beautiful light and definitely someone who inspired me both in her journey, but also in where she is today and what she is doing and has accomplished. This is Alaina Hoskins, who is the author of the 2015 memoir, Behind Church Doors, Overcoming Church Hurt. She is the founder of the VZN Strategy Group as an image strategist, an inspirational speaker, and a native of Cleveland, Ohio. And right now, Alaina resides in Washington, D.C. and serves as the Associate Director of the Mayor's Office on Women, Policy, and Innovation under D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. So please give me a warm welcome to introduce and bring Alaina Hoskins to us today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to have you. And I know it has been, and Logic and Friends, welcome Alaina. It has been quite a season for you, and some congratulations are in order as the new Mrs. Haskins. So congratulations. You have had quite a whirlwind of some celebrations.
I have. It's so funny when we put on there, when I saw Alaina Hoskins, I'm almost 2 months in being Mrs. Hoskins. And so getting used to seeing that, but I love it. I'm super excited.
Well, I love it. And I think, truthfully, it's such a testament to the journey that you have been on, because this did not happen overnight, right? This has been work and time and a commitment to yourself to get to where you are. And so today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about you and talk about your journey and the healing that you are hopefully going to help us to continue to do in community. Thank you. I see so many congratulations. No holdbacks. Congratulations. I think
Thank you
Logic and
so much.
Friends also. It's a beautiful thing. And look, if you have to, you'll be following her by the end of today, and you'll see the beautiful pictures of the celebrations and the trips after and everything. And welcome to Ishe Chico Jones from our Renters Network. And thank you so much. So, Alaina, the
Yes.
show is called Pain to Power. And I always have this wondering of what that relationship of pain to power means for everyone individually. How would you say you connect those two pieces together?
Wow. When I first hear the question, I think of the word consistency. I think that in both for the pain and the power, it takes consistency to get through so that you're not stuck, so that you can eventually get to or arrive to the power part, right? And I think it's everybody's journey is different. And the power part may mean something different for every person. But I think to answer the question, it would definitely be consistency. It means and then if I would go deeper or further definition, like when you think of the pain to the power, it's something that probably you wasn't expecting, something that has happened, something that you have
Mm.
gone through to get to this next place, right? And when sometimes people hear power, they think of monetary, they think of, being a boss, they thinking of, I made it, I got this, I got that. But for me, power means that I didn't stay stuck and that I'm out of the place that I thought I
Mm.
probably would never get out of, or at that time in the midst of it, could not see the light at the end of the tunnel. So the power point for me is just making it through the pain part, which is
That's a
consistency.
beautiful thing, that consistency. But then what you said, right, to not remain stuck. And I love the way that you shifted the narrative of power, because we do often think it's about control to some extent, but it's really almost like the way you said it. It sounds to me almost like liberation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is beautiful. And the Logic says she's preaching already. She is. So, and speaking of which, your journey didn't begin, but I know that when we started talking, this is kind of the starting point, was through what you have chronicled in your memoir, which is Behind Church Doors, Overcoming Church Hurt.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about just what brought you to write the book and what that book has been for you.
Wow. So I never thought I was an author. I never thought I would write a book. I was told that I had 4 books in me. Right? And so I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't get the memo. I didn't know about that. But I was married for 25 years to a pastor. We were in ministry together back in Cleveland, Ohio. We served for years in ministry. And we ended up leaving a church that was home for us. And we ended up someplace that I believe we should have never gone, which really tried our marriage. It really tried, it was very difficult in this space. It was a 4 year span of being in this ministry. And my ex, or his deceased husband now, um, got caught up, I would say, as sometimes a lot of preachers and ministers do. And our family was literally, we wasn't handled correctly. I'll just say that. And he didn't handle it correctly. And so his attitude was that this is church, I'm better off in the street, and got hooked to crack cocaine. He had had a history with that back in his like 1920s, in his 20s, and had been clean at that time for like 17 years. And so relapsed to crack cocaine, which was devastating to our family. We had four children altogether, two small children, well, 13 and 8 at the time. And so it was very devastating for us. We went from, being pastors, known to this huge scandal that was all over the city of Cleveland. Um, and what made matters worse is that the leadership that we was under at the time had to discipline him, and he did it publicly, and he brought us on a stage in front of thousands of people. There was some truth that was told, and there was some exaggerations and some just outright lies, and was probably one of the most humiliating days of my life, to be standing in front of over 3,000 people, and something that you're trying to keep private is being exposed, right? And so it was very difficult for me. But I could not deal with the pain because I had two small children and I had a husband that was addicted to crack. And so I put me on the back burner, and I began to, in the Christian family, we believe God, God is a deliverer. And so I went into full mode of believing God for my husband, even when he couldn't believe it for himself. And so I gave everything I had. I took my vows very seriously. It wasn't just, I'm married, but I made a vow to God. And so that part, and I'm sure we're going to get a little bit deeper into that, the things that we've been taught that, has a different meaning sometimes. And so with that, I continued, trying to raise my children, and also um, trying to help him get free from drugs. And so I stayed with him for almost 50 rehabs. I divorced him. I remarried him. Um, And again, it wasn't about me. It was about my two daughters and him. And so, what made me write the book? Again, someone told me that I had several books in me, and I had never dealt with anything. I had dealt, not only was, let me go back, not only was the crack, but it was an affair as well. So this was all public humiliation. This is somebody I had been with since I was 15 years old. This was not just, this was my friend, right? And I never saw this coming, but I understood why it happened, right? Like we had just completely grown, completely apart, being in this ministry that was just very toxic for us. And so when I began to write the book, I wanted to tell my story. And especially in the Black family and in the Black church, we've taught so many times, you hear what goes on in this house stays in this house, right? To our death. And it's like, at what point do we keep holding all these secrets? At what point do we keep holding all this pain that we're carrying it ourselves? At what point do we say enough is enough and then share our story to help other people? And the book wasn't a book to expose anybody. But again, I am a firm believer of the word of God. And there is a scripture that says, that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. And so a lot of times people don't get to overcome because we're not hearing the testimonies of the people who have already overcome, who have gone through the pain to the power part, right? Hold all this stuff in, and everyone else looking at us thinking, we got it going on, you're doing all this, but they need to know the story, because the truth of the matter is that it's so many people who are right where we were or where we are, and they need to know that, my God, if you could make it, then there's hope for me. So that was the reason for me to write the book, was to shed light. And then also the church world to let us know that we got to stop putting these leaders as gods, putting them on this pedestal, and that, to fall in love with Christ again, which is what something I had to do. And I had to be first partaker of my own book. And so that's why I wrote the book.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed as you're telling your story of, I mean, and and what you've been through. And thank you for writing the book, because it's clear that there's a need for this story, for this understanding of all the layers, and all the strength that's required to go through what you went through. But I don't know if you've noticed, the chat has been blowing up, and there are so many comments, so much affirmation and validation of you sharing your story. Tammy Edwards says, a wonderful book, a bestseller. I did not want it to end. It ministers to you in many ways. Thank you, Alaina. So thank you, Tammy, for sharing that. Elliot Hoskins, I love the book. Is that your husband? Congratulations and shout out to Elliot. Thank you. And yes, and Stephanie Gale, one of our fellow ranters. Welcome and salute, Stephanie. Why did you have to be humiliated? That's just terrible. And
Yeah,
truly, I mean, like, I think that just takes it to another level of you know, betrayal and pain within a marriage is one thing, but to have that now be a public conversation has taken it to just a whole nother level of what strength it speaks to you having to
yeah,
be able to stand through that and be a mother to
yeah.
your children.
Oh my God, that part, right? And not just humiliated. When he talks about that, I mean, it was absolutely, I wouldn't bow down, right? I literally supported my ex-husband at the time to go to this ministry. I knew that it wasn't the space for us. It was not where we were supposed to be, right? But
Mm-hmm.
um it's so deep because I'm finishing up my second book right now, and my second book is going to be able to explain this book. And so I don't want to give too much, but I do want to share, like, we have to start dealing with our why. We always talk about our why, but also our why, like, why do we do some of the things that we do? Why did I go to that church and I knew that that wasn't the space we were supposed to be in? I pray, I had a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with Christ. I knew that this was not of God. This was not his will for our family. I knew that. But I had to begin to take off the layers and deal with why did I
Mm-hmm.
go in the first place. And so getting to that part, oh my God, like Dylan, because like I said before, he had um been on drugs in the past, right? He was clean for 17 years, but the first chapter of my book is called My Wedding Night. And the wedding night was the worst night of my life. I've never experienced what I experienced on my wedding night. And so that wedding night set the foundation of my marriage. I operated and walked in fear for
Mm-hmm.
25 years. Is the part where in Joel, when he said the thing that I feared upon the most has finally come upon me. That was me, because I did not want him to ever relapse to drugs again because of what I had experienced with him, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
went along with everything. So, I would speak up, but still do whatever he asked to do because I could not afford, or I did not want to go through what I went through on my wedding night. And so that's why I did not say no. That's why, because something that he needed. It was, he needed to be there. We had to leave. We had to do this, right? And so that was my of why I went. And I knew we should not have been there. So I have to take some responsibility here in this.
Mm-hmm.
It's never, sometimes we want to blame the other person. It's always them, and what they did or what they did wrong, right? But it takes two.
Yeah.
And I had to
Yeah.
take responsibility there. And that's a big girl thing. Put your big girl panty thing on because listen, it's not as easy. It hurts. It's hard. It's hurtful.
Oh, that's the hardest part is turning the mirror on yourself, right? And looking at yourself and taking that responsibility. So what was the moment though where you started to make that shift to understand your why better?
So I started therapy, which is what my new book is about. Um, I started therapy. But before I even started therapy, I'm that person who digs to the bottom. I tell the truth to myself. Shakespeare said, "To thy own self be true." That would be me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't lie to myself. So I ask myself hard questions and I have to give hard answers. And so I knew why I didn't go. And the first, so the therapist wasn't the one who helped me, but she was able to help me unpack.
Mm.
And then now when you unpack, you got to put something else there, right? And so that was the powerful part for me with therapy, but I knew why. And then I was a product of divorce. And we got to go back to our childhood, right? Oh my
Oh,
God.
yes.
Who wants to go back there?
Oh, but that's the root of it, right? Nothing happens in a
Ooh.
vacuum. It all comes from some root.
Yeah, I was a product. My parents were divorced. It was the worst thing that ever happened in my life. Um, and I promised I would never get a divorce. See, words are powerful. I don't care when you say them, they will manifest itself because we've put it in the universe and it will manifest. And I said I would never get a
Mm.
divorce. And I meant that because I didn't want my kids to go through what I went through as a divorced child, from a divorced marriage. And so with all of that, from the age of 7 years old, when I made that proclamation that that would never happen to me, I lived it, but at the detriment of me and my children. So
Mm.
it was when I said, okay, I'm looking at them, I'm looking at me, everyone's looking at me. They think I'm so strong, they think I'm this, I'm that, but I was dying on the inside. And it looked
Mm.
like, and I had to realize like I can want him to be free from drugs to eternity. But until he decide this is something that he wants to be free from, I don't have what can I do?
Mm.
So that was when I decided that okay, I can't do this another day. I was literally messed up. Like I mean was messed up. It was very difficult. The book only gives a what's the word? It only gives you, I mean, just a little bit. And someone just put, I saw that check on your
Check on
strong
your strength.
friends. Listen, oh my God, I'm sure that's probably another question, but that part, because we didn't look like what we were going through. So we had already become, we had things. I was a hairstylist. We had two homes, we had cars, we was living the life. But when I relocated following him, trying to leave from the humiliation, we had to get the heck out of Cleveland. I couldn't stay there. I was trying to protect my kids. I didn't want my kids to know. It was just so many different dynamics there. And so when we got to Atlanta, um, he had a great job that lasted 3 weeks because the drugs had him. And so we
Mm.
went from six figures to I was homeless in Atlanta with two children. And so homeless, some days no water, no gas, no lights, no nothing, but we were still driving the 750 BMW. We still lived in this big, beautiful house. We was dressed to the nine, kids' hair done every day because I was a hairstylist. We had the things before the fall, right? And
Right.
so people didn't think I needed help because people want to see you down, look down and be down, and they think that that's when you need help. But I was down, but what did not look like where we were. So, right,
Mm.
please check on your strong friends because everything that looks like it's okay just may not be okay.
I,
So,
I I think that's huge, and thank you, John, for putting that in the chat. Right? Yeah, check on your strong friends, and I think you're speaking to it. It's that strength became your detriment,
yeah,
right? Like that idea of holding strong and doing and just powering forward is something that we think again is power, but in fact it's these damaging messages of what we're supposed to be and do without really recognizing the damage that it's doing. And I mean, I again, kudos to you for what you were able to still accomplish with everything that was going on. But there's an element that I'm just curious, like, was it the perception of others that was driving you, or the perception of your children? Because just thinking of as a mother, right, that's the hardest part, is protecting your children from the things that are breaking you. uh, so I mean, how did that come in for you, those that layer?
it was both. It was it was both. one, again, remember, we keep going back to this, my faith in God, right? So I'm holding on to these scriptures, I'm holding on to these things, that we've been taught, that's been ingrained in me. You never let them see you sweat, speaking those things that are not as though they were. It's all these strong, powerful, confessions that I'm making every single day, and I'm confessing them and I'm believing them and I'm tapping back into what my grandmother told me. Yet my life is completely opposite of, I mean, when I say polar opposite of what the scriptures was saying about me. So I was
Mhm.
holding on to that because that was my strength. I didn't have a plan B. Christ was all I knew, all I to this day, and so I had to trust him in the process. But as far as my children was concerned, I couldn't let them down. So I had to show up every day. We talk about it now that they're
Mhm.
adults. I couldn't let them down. I couldn't let them see me if their dad, you got to get it, right? You got to understand this was their pastor, this was their dad, this was all the things, right? And they went from in the pulpit dad to in the gas stations begging for money dad, or walking down the street with all their stuff dad. So I couldn't allow them to lose both of us. So
Yeah.
it was so much bigger than the humiliation. It was bigger than um, losing everything, but it was showing up for my two daughters every single day. And I meant that. I meant that you lost one parent, but you're not losing both. I'm going to show up. And I even did that. I go hard in the pain for whatever I love, what I believe in. I go hard. And I did that again to my detriment, because
Mm.
Alaina didn't come to play until just a few years ago. Because
Mm.
everything I did, every move I made, every decision I made was with them in mind.
But in sacrificing yourself in that process, though.
Yeah.
So, how did therapy start to get you, or what was it maybe even that got you to start to finally say, where's Alaina in all this?
So it was very difficult because not only did I have to deal with that, I had to deal with being blackballed in the city of Cleveland. So it was so
Mm.
many moving parts here because um, I wouldn't bow down. People were wanting me, let's come back to this church. We want you to come here. We want you to do this. We want you to do this. We want you to do that. Right. And I'm like, no, I'm not coming to nobody's church. I'm not doing anything right now. I don't even know who the heck I am right now. Like, I am angry. I am bitter. I mean, like, I'm a snake right now. I have poisonous venom coming out of me. You don't want me anywhere near anything that looks like that because I'm so hurt. And now you're talking about 10 years in, and I'm still out here. And no one who we've served for over the 15, 20 years up until that part even came back to make sure we were good. They knew what we were going through because when you on crack, that's not a private thing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm. Right.
people seeing you. And so people knew, but no one came back. Now, I'm not gonna say no one, but the people who had power, who could have
Mm-hmm.
made the situation very different for us to help us. Like, we had helped so many people. So I begin to understand and I begin to pray before therapy. I begin to seek God, like, what is this? And I realized that I was on a journey. I had to go through this so I could sit here with you tonight. My call on my life is to help hurting girls and wounded women. It's been a call for the last 35 plus years, if not before. I've been mentoring for years. And I felt like I heard, like, in my devotional, my meditation time, how can you help hurting girls and wounded women if you haven't felt pain, if you haven't yourself have been wounded? How do you then turn around to tell them how they can make it out? And I felt like the Holy Spirit was saying to me, like, I have enough people telling people what they heard that could
Mm.
for them. But when you speak, you're going to speak because of what you know and what I did for you to get you out of that. So I'm very intentional on the speaking engagement that I do. I don't speak everywhere. It has to be with purpose. And so because I don't want what I went through, what I suffered with, what I, still I'm so much better than what I was, but it's still a journey. I don't ever want it to be in vain. I want
Mm,
every time I open up my mouth, as in you and I met. So when I speak to someone and share my story, it's not to say, oh, poor her, but it's like to say, whoa, I can do this. I want to make sure that the words that I say, even the life that I lived in front of my children, is consistent, and that's the part for me, I think, that is has been very beneficial, and it's made the journey making me say, wow, it's been worth it to see how it has helped so many other people.
wow, it's been transformational and very much, right? Like I am so grateful that we met right at the point
Yeah.
that day, and that you shared your story with me, but now again, like you've been sharing it with many, and there's a purpose to it. But I think within that, like what I'm sure so many women, the first thing that comes to mind, because I'm just thinking of conversations literally I've had this week with women and with men who have been through pain in their lives, and there's this moment, this precipice, right, where you know that it can be better, you know that something can change, but it's like, how do I move through every day? How do I wake up every morning and still step out of the bed and actually just begin the day, right? Like that's the hardest thing. So I mean, you mentioned some intense emotions, right? Betrayal, just feeling like you were completely, left behind by people that you trusted. The anger, the level of bitterness, all of it. But you are so at peace. Like when I look at you, when I speak to you, there's so much peace and so much serenity within your soul that exudes. How have you maintained that through everything that you were going through? And particularly at that time, how did you stay centered?
Um, this is so important. I spoke a couple of weeks ago and I didn't get to really expound on this, and I want to share this part in depth today. Um, Being very intentional who is on your front row, your front row crew is very important in this time. I knew that I was chosen to go through this. As a matter of fact, in the book, I talk about coming to Washington, D.C. This is about to really blow you away. Coming to Washington, D.C., when I wanted to leave the ministry that we were at, I didn't know what to do. So I went back to my old church, and there was a women's conference here at I forget the name of the church, but it's called Susie Bishop Owens and Susie Owens. I think it's Southeast DC. Anyway, they had a women's conference, and at the women's conference, the guest speaker was in the midst of speaking, and she began to prophesy in the middle of her speaking, and she stopped, and she began to prophesy that someone in the room life was about to change. That in the next 7 days, when you get home, things was not going to be like they were, and that it was going to be devastating. It was going to take your breath away. And I'm sitting there looking like, who is she talking to? And I'm on the front row, right? Because I'm the guest of one of the speakers. And so I'm like, oh my God. And she was literally prophesying death. And I mean death. And she said, if you think I'm talking to you, come to the altar. And I thought, who is coming to the altar for this death sentence? Because this is a death sentence. This is not a prophecy, this is a death sentence, right? And in
Wow.
that moment, all I could think about, the way I compared in the book, is when Judas was sitting at the Last Supper and Jesus said that there's someone here going to betray me. And he said to Jesus, he said, is it I? When I tell you that is how I felt on that front row, I refused to walk on the altar. So I just lifted my hands up because I knew it was me. I knew she was talking about me. And because I came there because I'm trying to figure out how to leave. How do I get out of from underneath this ministry? Do I leave? I didn't know what to do. And so from that moment, I knew that I was chosen to go through this. But at the end of her prophecy, she said, I could just tell you this. She said, it's going to be hard for a period of time, but you cannot give up. Because if I can only show you what's on the other side of your pain, that part. She began to then prophesy life. And I couldn't hear all the life that she was prophesying at the time because I was still stunned and stuck on what I'm about to go through, what's about to happen in the next 7 days. And when I tell you, when I left Washington, D.C., and went home, it was probably 8 or 9 days afterward that I got that knock on the door and my whole world was turned upside down. So for me, and I knew that I had to go through that, right? So being very clear, this is okay. If God trusts me, and the only person I could really look up to was Job in the Bible. Like I couldn't think of no one who was about to lose everything. And then what happened? I'm like, okay, then what happened to Job? Okay, in these chapters, this happened, and then God restored, right? So I got the restoration of Job, right? Then I got the prophecy of the woman who said what my life was going to look like if I don't give up. And she just kept emphasizing, but you can't give up. And I'm just like, oh Lord. So what I did was I took scriptures that would you know, help me get through. And then I made sure the people that was around me could handle what I was going through and not allow them to speak more death in their opinion, because everybody got an opinion when they haven't even been anywhere near what you've been through. And I was thinking about like, who do I talk to during this time? I couldn't, right? Because how do you talk to people who are where you are or less than where you are, who are drowning themselves? And so you're drowning, they're drowning. And so what we gonna do, just all drown together? Yeah, no,
Right.
that wasn't gonna work for me.
Nobody's got a lifesaver. Nobody's.
I began to compartmentalize my relationships. Where's my friend at right here? Okay. She's a new babe in Christ. I can't share this with her. So because if I share this with her, this may turn her away from where God wants to take her. So now I'm responsible for other people's stuff on top of all my stuff. I can't talk to my parent, my mother, my sister. They hearing all the stuff in the street. Like the story had gotten so big and so ugly. And this was a mega ministry, the only mega ministry in the city of Cleveland. So my stuff was out here in these streets, right? And so it was like, Lord, who? And sometimes God wouldn't talk to me at all, but he would send people along the way to encourage me. And it would be that part in me that would grab hold of, that word, and it would take me. And I don't want to portray that this was easy, but I never had give up in me. It was something down on the inside. There were days I'm like, I would say, I'm going to give up. I quit. I cannot do this another day. But it would be something inside of my gut like, you got this. And I would shake it off. I would wake up the next day, beat my face, do my hair, put my clothes on, and try to figure it out and walk this journey. And so it's unbelievable, 19 years since the stage incident. And so right, because I want to be clear. I don't ever want to send no mixed messages. When I tell y'all this was not easy, it was just I've been in DC for 5 years. That's when the shift happened for me to begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel, just 5 years ago. So almost for 15 years, I was on the south side of hell, going through hell. And I mean going through hell. But when you looked at this, you wouldn't see it. And so people didn't understand it. That's why I'm saying you got to compartmentalize your relationships. Who can handle what? Who can you trust with this? Who can you say with this? Who can you be vulnerable with? Who can you just be totally naked with? Who can? Because what was happening was this is about to be really crazy or sound crazy. As bad as my life was going, was as good as it was going. So
Mm.
we're at home with no water, no nothing, no, I mean, welfare, food stamps, I mean, the whole nine. But my daughter gets a record deal at 16. My daughter's all over Atlanta singing. They're looking at us like, what? We coming home to Cleveland. She's being interviewed on radio. So they're looking at us like, oh shoot, we thought we killed her. We thought, oh, what? She's still moving. They don't know because we don't look like what we're going through, right? So then
Yeah.
record deal happens, right? Then we have her get on Tyler Perry House of Pain. They gotta watch us on TV. She everywhere. She doing all the things, right? But I'm still in line every month with my food stamp card. I'm still, we got Medicaid because I can't get insurance because I went back to doing hair in Atlanta so that I could
Mm.
be available for my children. Because if I'm a hairstylist, I make my own appointments. So that way I was able to go to all the basketball games, all the studio stuff. I was missing money left and right, but I had to show up for my kids because it wasn't their fault. They didn't ask to be in that position. And so those were the things that was happening, right? Like it was just absolutely bananas. Then we come back, my daughter go, I started believing that I wasn't poor in my mind because I wasn't. The Bible says, so a man thinketh, so is he. So I was, even though I was on welfare, even though I didn't have water, even though I didn't have lights, even though I didn't have gas, my BMW was smoking every 2 miles. I had to get out the car and take water jugs out to put in because I couldn't afford antifreeze. All those things was happening to me, but yet then my daughter, 15 years old, get to go to Harvard University for free for a summer program. We on the front page of the newspaper. I said, I'm not gonna be able to get no help even if I wanted to, right? Like, how does this look? Tyler Perry, Harvard University, record deal. You got all this great stuff happening, right? But I'm at home like, God, like, can you just manifest a little bit?
Mm.
Can you give
Mm.
like something? Like, do I gotta keep living off of crumbs? Like when is my time coming? And he wouldn't say a word. And we just continued and we kept moving. And even in the moving, it was God was just showing up. But I get it now because it makes the story, right? It was him putting my faith in him and speaking those things, but it was also to get to this place. But
Yeah.
yes,
Well, oh my God. So I like there's so much. There's so much,
I
so
know.
much. But what I heard and I feel like what's resonating with me is that you elevated this idea of intentional community and faith. Like that
Yeah.
faith in this idea of something that you couldn't see, but you had to believe in despite not even know like having it there in front of you, right? And there were all these other things that were happening. I love what you said, and I saw it in the chat, right? As bad as it was is as good as it was.
Yeah.
That is powerful because oftentimes when we are in as bad as my life is as good as my life is, right? And I think oftentimes when we are in the deepest places, the hardest places, the toughest places, we are so we are focused on the one thing that is the hardest for us, that we are not always seeing the blessings around us. So I think the fact even that you saw those blessings at the same time and that kept you driving forward for 15 years, Alaina, that's incredible. Incredible strength, incredible power, incredible pain to be compounding over and over and over again and to keep coming out of. I mean, you have created a movement in terms of this power of faith and believing in yourself to keep going forward, right? That's huge.
It's so funny when you said that. Let me tell you how much I believed it. So we started my youngest daughter going to Harvard. She eventually decided to go to Howard, which is why I'm here in DC. And so again, things just kept happening for my children. They just kept blowing up, and I mean, they was blowing up in big ways. She came here. She ran for office while a freshman at Howard and won, becoming the youngest elected official in the history of our nation's capital. She still holds it to this day.
Amazing.
And so with that came all kind of things, right? And so she had the opportunity to, First Lady Michelle Obama invited her to come and open up for her, to introduce her for the women of the movement. And so this particular day, this is so funny to me. I am super excited, still on welfare, still, with everything in me, about to lose my mind, but I didn't. Um, Very short of nervous breakdowns. I think I probably had 3 or 4, just not, I wasn't aware,
Mm,
because I was so, determined that I was going to, push forward. But sitting in the West Wing on the front row with all the dignitaries, I mean, the president of Spelman, it was packed. I mean, everybody was there. Essence magazine. I mean, it was huge, right? And so my daughter gets up to introduce her. She talks about how, she ran from, for elected official. Everybody's clapping, giving her standing ovations because everyone's reading about her. She's in every newspaper. She's in every magazine. She's doing the things, right? And so I'm sitting up there proud with my welfare card, my food card in my pocket. I got on my Sunday's best, and I'm just excited to, grateful. Look at you guys, didn't kill us. Now we're here in the White House. Okay. And then she goes on to say, from being from a poor, what's the word she said? I said I would never forget it, but she talked about being poor, and I sat there. I didn't have on pearls, but I was looking to clench them, and I'm like, who is she talking about? Who's poor? Like, I could not. I was like, what is she talking about? Because I didn't believe where I was at was real.
mm,
That wasn't real for me. That was her reality of watching what we went through. And so when we got done, everybody was coming up to me, like, oh my God, you got to be so proud. Your daughter is so powerful. She's this and that. And I'm like, yes, thank you. But in my heart, it's going like this. Like, she really think we poor? Like, I was so confused. So when we got done, and I said, when the next day I said, why did you say we were poor? And she busted out laughing. She said, I knew you were going to ask me. And she said, Mom, news alert, we're poor. I said, no, we're not. She was like, yeah, when you got to get reduced lunches, we're poor. When you come home every day and there's an eviction notice on your door in a different color, we're poor. That food stamp card in your purse that you be blessing other families with, we're poor. And I had to say, wow, it's amazing how you can have two people living the same life, enduring the same things, have two different perspectives. Because even when she said it, I still said, I'm not poor.
mm.
I
But
am not poor. Are you kidding me?
I think it goes to what you said, though, the power of words, right? You believe in that power of words. Like, no, it isn't, right? That's not your reality because it's not what you believe is your reality. And there's a power within that. But I think it's interesting because what we believe, and you and I have talked, quite a few times, right, of this challenge of um motherhood and balancing challenges in your life, right? And that I think it's very different what we may believe as mothers we are doing and saying and creating, and then what our children experience and how their narrative, because you're actually living these two very different, right, lives. And I have to give a shout out. Josh says, wait, what's your daughter's name? Please give her a plug. Yes, please give her a plug because it sounds like she's doing some amazing things.
Oh,
So what is your daughter's name?
so I have two. I have Lauren Carpenter and I have Allison Carpenter. I have two daughters.
Lauren and Allison
Yeah.
Carpenter. I love it. Thank you. Yes, and definitely a shout out to the tremendous things that both your daughters are doing, Lauren, and I'm sorry, and your second daughter's name is Lauren and
Allison.
Allison. Thank you. But a shout out to Lauren and Allison. But I'm wondering what other things had come up for you in that difference in what you believed was happening and what your children were experiencing and believing were happening.
Whew, that part. So we have the generational gap, is what I call it. There's a huge gap in, our generations for me and my children. We were raised a certain way. We were taught certain things, and this generation's a little bit different, right? Even though I've raised them, um, it was very difficult because they're human beings and they had their own idea of how things should be. They had their own. I grew up in a generation where you were seen and not heard.
Mm,
You don't have the right to speak in adult conversations. Your parents made the decisions and you followed them. I didn't like that coming up. I didn't like it at all, actually. I felt in bondage. I felt like what I felt didn't matter. Um, and so I gave my kids agency a little bit more than what I had to be able to share. Sometimes I think I may have done too much, but it was okay. I wanted to hear their opinion.
mhm,
And so I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. I've evolved because of not just saying it's my way and no other way, but my kids are smart and they're bright and they have a voice. And so, yes, I agree with you to this point. I don't agree with that, but I do agree with this. And so I had to begin to shift my thinking, especially if I'm going to be helping and talking to young ladies. And it can't be, our generations, I'm watching it every single day. Like when things happen and adults say, well, they shouldn't feel that way. Well, how do you have the right to say how anyone feels?
mhm,
It's not your
mhm,
place. Now that's totally different for me because my generation don't believe that, right? You don't get the right to tell your child what to feel. Like she has a mind of her own. She's a thought process of her own. Now we don't have to agree with everything, but at least acknowledge that they're human beings, that they don't want to be controlled.
mhm,
Kind of how I was raised. We were controlled. You thought what they thought. You said what they said, right? And if you didn't, you was punished for it. And so I gave my kids agency. And
mm.
because of that, I have evolved. Um, I got emotional there. I evolved in my thinking, how I understand things now. Um, Even though they had their opinions, I did listen. Some things I did that I felt was best for them because you didn't know. So you have to have a good balance in that, right? You can't just let your kids just take over and everything is what they say. No, there has to be a balance. And even in this
Mhm,
generational gap, I think that we need to learn as a nation, a community. You got to start somewhere, a church, that what we have, they need. Some of the things that we have, they need. But some of the things that they have, we need as well.
mhm.
That when we think that we know it all and we got it all together, because when I grew up, this is what okay. And how did that work out?
Right, right. How's that working for you? Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
But
yeah.
that's so huge, right? Because we do often dismiss the voices of our youth, of our children, and we think that we need to control who they are. But that agency is the power that we give them to become the humans they're supposed to be. And it sounds like it allows for that space to learn. And you learned a lot from your daughters, right? But then within that, there was some unlearning that you
Yeah.
had to do. So I want to dig a little bit more into that, because unlearning is a journey as women and women. I'm going to say as women in particular. I know it's for men too, and probably there are men in the chat, and they're going to say that too. And yes, but unlearning for women is something. And what are some of those big pieces of unlearning of yourself as a woman, particularly as a Black woman, have you had to do in this journey of where you've gotten to?
Whew, that's a loaded question. Um, there was a lot I had to unlearn. Um, I'll start from even the church. That was the most difficult part of anything for me, was the church, unlearning, and getting back to myself. When I first joined church, I ended up at a Pentecostal. I'll just skip. I ended up at a Pentecostal church, and so I was this young fly hairstylist, the makeup, all the things, the jewelry, the hair, the fly car, all the things, right? And when I joined the church, they were looking at me like, "Oh, this is of the devil." Like you can't wear the makeup, take off the red lipstick. They called these whore hoops. the big earrings. I had to pull my hair back in a bun. Wore long dresses. My friends thought I had a nervous breakdown. It was not good. And I had the ear of our leader. And so I would challenge him, like, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And so, because of my relationship with him, here we go back to childhood stuff. My dad died when I was 14. My dad
Mm-hmm.
and my mother divorced when I was 7. So I was a daddy's girl and I was longing for a daddy. And so I got that in my pastor, right? Gotta go
Mm-hmm.
back to some stuff. And so I would share with him my concerns, like, why are we got to do this? Why we have to do that? And so things began to change for me. But even now, like I wear big earrings pretty much every single day, because I'm taken back. These are not horror hoops. I beat my face every day. I wear pink, red, any color lipstick I want to, right? Because I can. And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
take away my salvation.
Mm-hmm.
Love God with the lipstick on, with it off. It doesn't, and it's not for you to have a heaven or hell to put me in, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is my relationship with Christ. And so that was one, and I still like when I'm putting on certain things for my bridal shower, I wore a bustier and some shorts and a blazer, right? And I was so excited because I did it because I could.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And that night was so empowering for me. Like
Mm.
it was like, yes. And you're worried about what I have on the outer part, but God is concerned what's in the heart.
Mm.
And I always want to keep a heart posture toward Him. It's not about the clothes, it's not about those things. It's about this part. And so that was one of the things I had to unlearn, that I had to listen to the voice of God for myself. And just because it comes over the pulpit don't automatically mean it's God. And so that was a very hard part. Me, as a mother, learning, unlearning, that they don't have a right. And I hate it because I said so. I do believe because I said so definitely comes into play sometimes, but it shouldn't
Mm.
be our go-to every time. No, how do you feel? What's on your mind? I didn't have that coming up. How did that make you feel? Okay, that was not listening. Okay, I hurt your feelings when I said, what? Wow, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Going back, getting it right with my kids, that's unheard of for my generation. Apologize.
Mm.
You apologize for what? You eat every day, right? You have clothes to wear, right? You
Right. Right.
So to be able to go back and learn how to be a mother and listen and hear, and then when I leave them and go in my room at night, all right, Lord, now how do I balance this? What part of this is you? What part can
Mm.
I take away? What part can they feel heard? Like it's a lot of work. But those were the things, and just being judgmental. Like my way is not always the right way. There's
Mm.
multiple ways, and taking the time to really sit and figure things out. So it was unlearning. I mean, this could be a whole 2-day series because I've had to unlearn so much. And then not just unlearn, but balance out what I already knew. Because some things
Mm.
you don't have to unlearn. I think that there needs to be a different narrative and that there needs to be balance.
Yeah.
What does balance
Yeah.
look like? What does balance feel like? How do this really work, right? Especially in 2023. What does that look like?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to put me first.
Mm. That's a big one.
That
That's a huge unlearning for certain. It's okay to put me first. And I have to say, as I listen to Alaina, I think one of the things that rings for me big is that a lot of people would have taken all of this, and particularly everything that happened with the church and the church reactions and the way that you were blasted out on the stage and all of it, right? And have completely turned away from religion. And I think what's really powerful and fascinating and inspiring in you is that your faith hasn't shaken, right? Your perspective of how religion is supposed to be in your life is it has been changed and shifted over the years and over the experiences, but I feel like in the most authentic way. but your faith has always stayed in this very authentic, strong place of what you believe in is what you believe in. And you've just deeper and deepening what that belief is in a way that aligns now with who you are, not who you're supposed to be or who others want you to be.
Yeah. That's when you say that, I remember when my husband started dating and he read my book, he put in the chat, he read the book.
He
He read
did. He
it
was
night.
your biggest fan in there.
I want him to know. I want him to know everything. And so he read the book in one night. And when he read it, I remember um, he said, "Wow, you've been through so much." He said, "But I don't sense that you are bitter. Like you're not angry." Like, I'm not at all. I and when I say not at all, that wasn't who I was 19 years ago. I was pretty pissed off, okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
But because of the process, because of the understanding the why, the taking off all the stuff and really getting down to the real thing allowed me to forgive myself. That's huge. And forgive others and know that God loves me. Again, I said, I don't have a plan. I didn't have a plan B, and I still don't. God is he's one, two, three, four, five. He's all I have. And trust in the process of this journey. Getting choked up here, a little emotional, but because I love him so much that people have died from this pain. But yet I sit here today empowered, very clear, very sober minded. Um, I'm so grateful for my relationship with him because it's that has brought me to this space. It is because of his forgiveness for me that I'm able to forgive others. You know, sometimes we want things to happen for us that we're not willing to do for other people.
Mm.
So I had to forgive first. It's the hardest thing. So I think someone put on social media. The hardest thing to do is forgive someone who never said that they were sorry.
Mm. Hmm.
And going through that part, yeah,
And we have to check our ego with that, right? Because why is it that we, and that goes back to the why do I need that
Woo.
sorry,
Yeah,
right?
yep,
Why am I forgiving? Are we forgiving for ourselves to release and recognize that it just isn't and wasn't for us, right? That pain was meant to happen for whatever reason. It was meant to happen to take you to the journey of where you are, because as you kept saying, and you have been saying, right, is that your story has has to be told for others to understand their own story, and that is a very humbling
mm,
thing to be able to say, but also to experience. And you have to let go of any bitterness. You have to lean into that
yeah,
idea that, you know it forgive yourself,
yeah,
and forgive others. And it's hard.
yeah.
So all of this has really led you to now do things for others. So can we tell us? I want to definitely, before we leave this evening, to learn about what are you doing specifically to really take this word, these experiences, and help other women in their lives.
So that's interesting. You would say, ask me that question right now, because that's something I've been praying about. Again, been here for 5 years. I'm an ordained elder. I have license, and I have not operated. I believe I've been called to the market ministry, the marketplace outside at,
Oh,
the
okay.
point. When
Okay.
I believe that's what I've been called to, and,
Mhm.
so just trying to figure out what that looks like now. I think I live what I've been called to do every single day, but now putting it into, perspective. My position with the mayor is helping women and girls across the district help amplify government and resources. They actually connected with me at an event I did for the NBA All-Star Weekend, the Single Mothers Brunch. Um,
Hmm.
which I'm very passionate about for single mothers. You know, Mother's Day, mothers are incredible women. We are all the things, but it takes a special strength to be a single mother. And so I'm getting ready to launch some things. You guys follow me on social media. My birthday is coming up in December. I'll be 55. And so I'm launching my new initiative here. And so just trying to make that make sense. But again, I'm finishing up my second book. I'm starting to open myself back up for speaking engagements. And sometimes you got to just take a pause, and I needed that pause. I needed to figure out DC, because even though I've been here for 5 years, I've been traveling with my company, with my clients, and just all over the place. And I wanted to make DC home, because this is going to be home for me, right? And so I took the job with the mayor's office, and it's been amazing. Again, helping women and girls here in the district. But I believe that I would, as I launch Vision again, and I am Alaina, it's going to be able to have a larger reach, and not
Mm.
just here in DC, but nationally. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. I don't want to share a whole bunch right now, because it's going to unfold within the next couple of weeks, but stay tuned. Um, yeah, I had to go through all the things, because when you talk to people, you got to have what's the end of the story, right? Now, after that happened, then what is this, And so it
Hmm.
all makes sense and make it all just come together so beautifully. And so that's where I am right now. And I'm super excited about what's about to take place. And you will be the one of the first to know. So I'm
I
super.
am very excited for that because we are all, anticipating what the next things are. And Ja put it in the chat. He said, let us know how we can support because all of this is amazing work that you're doing. I am a DC area native. I know there are a lot of people in our Ranchers Union network that are definitely DC connected. And so, yes, we want to stay connected. We want to keep growing and supporting all of the things that you're doing. And everybody go follow. I am Alaina on Instagram, her VZN SG group. Make sure that you are following, going to the website, that you pay attention and see all the different speaking engagements and the different ways that you can leverage the work from VGNSG. And we have the new book coming up soon. Do we have a title that you can share
Yes.
with us?
So the title is Free: How Therapy Changed My Life. And so I am taking my readers on a journey with me in 7 of my sessions, completely vulnerable. Um, yeah.
Wow.
Put your
And
seatbelts
vulnerability has, I mean, I think, we had talked about this idea of vulnerability being almost something new to some degree that you've been exploring. So this is going to be a beautiful book, and we're going to learn a lot more about you and what you've discovered in these 5 years, definitely. Thank you so much, Elena. This has been such an absolute pleasure and an honor.
This has been awesome.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. This is again Pain to Power, and I am here every Sunday at 9 o'clock. Elena, I hope you tune in to all of our shows coming up. I've got some amazing guests that continue to share their stories of pain to power. Make sure you are following Elena for her upcoming book,
Free.
Free. I wanted to say free for some of fear. Free to be released. And definitely follow her on Instagram. Are you on TikTok? Any other social media?
Yep. And you get the book.
And get the book Behind Church Doors. I know everyone is now very eager to read it because there is such a powerful story of transformation, of healing, of faith, of community, of really creating the world and the words that you want to come to life in your life. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone. Thank you to our iRant network, everyone who pulled up, so many of our ranters fam, and of course, to all of your support, as I saw a lot of friends in the chat, Mr. Hoskins, of course, as well, and then many others. So thank you to everyone. Please make sure that you are also hitting the bell down there, that you subscribe to this YouTube channel for Brown Girl Interrupting. You tune in every Sunday at 9 p.m. on this channel. Follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. The book, where can we find the book? The book,
Amazon. So the book is on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. It's on Target. It's in Walmart. It's everywhere. So get the book. You go online. Oh, you can go on my website as well and order as well. So
I love it. And all of those links are in down below in the description. So please make sure that you click on all of that information. And yes, and follow us both and stay with us and stay tuned. And if you haven't done it yet, just so you know, and Alaina, I don't know if you have a Roku TV or a Roku TV stick. Go and please download the iRant network. All of our shows from this network are featured, including Pain to Power and many others by our many creators and producers throughout the show. So please make sure that you download and that you like and comment and share, because we are here to continue to build and grow with community. And thank you again, Alaina, for your time. Thank you to Jalogic, Mr. M. Thank you. Search iRant. Thank you. Search the iRant on your Roku stick or your Roku TV. And join me every Sunday at 9 o'clock for more episodes of Pain to Power. Have a beautiful evening. Peace, love, and light.
bye-bye.
Thank you. My world has slowly crumbled around me countless times, and every time I rebuild with the pieces I've been given to birth something so transformational and beautiful that no one else knew might exist before it was shown to them. These moments tend to coincide within my romantic path. The universe has been telling me to focus on the revolution and not romance. It has over time given me the tools, resilience, and light to turn my pain into power. And only now do I see that the key to this always resided in the love and knowing I had in myself, not from the external sources of family or men. The message I have been avoiding might be that my time in this world I had existed in was not to receive love, but to put it out there for others to see, feel, and heal through. Revolution before romance moves pain into power. Hi, my name is Maria, but you are soon going to know me as Brown Girl Interrupting. And what I mean by that is that very soon, hopefully, you're going to be following my blog. I am a writer, and I started writing because I was married, I had children, and then my life changed when I separated, and I did a lot of learning and reflecting and growing in that process of change, because change always leads us to that. And I've decided to share that with the rest of the world, because sometimes hearing that someone else is going through the same thing as you, or understanding and putting words to the feelings and experiences we're having, helps us to heal from them, or grow from them, or learn from them. And so that's what my blog is. It's writing about life, healing, relationships, parenting, dating, marriage, pain, love, mistakes, growth, and coming out whole still in all of it as a human, flawed, but always open to new things. So that's my life, that's my journey, and it's written in this blog. But my hope is that you are going to go to www.browngirlinterrupting.com and join and subscribe to the blog and read all about my story to help you maybe gain some perspective on yours.